Nurses, what's the most heartbreaking scene you've witnessed in the emergency room? I was working as an RN in the intensive care unit of a large hospital many years ago. We received many critically ill patients from smaller hospitals routinely. One day, we received word that a 16-year-old girl was being transferred to our unit from a local community hospital. She had fulminant hepatitis B. Her name was Ashley. Upon arrival, she was clearly very ill. She was intubated, was on a ventilator, and had unstable vital signs. She was sedated and medically paralyzed to relax her and keep her from fighting and choking on the breathing tube. Within 30 minutes of her arrival, she had a cardiac arrest and required CPR. Fortunately, she responded well, and we got her stabilized on intravenous infusions of blood pressure controlling medications. I then took her down to radiology for a brain CT scan. It wasn't good news, her brain was swelling. She required a ventriculostomy to drain the cerebral spinal fluid to decrease the pressure on her brain and to monitor the pressure inside her skull. After she had become somewhat stabilized, I bathed her, and to my horror, discovered she had just had a miscarriage during the previous activities. She began bleeding profusely and required blood transfusions, fresh frozen plasma, and pitocin to control the bleeding. I accompanied the neurosurgeon to the waiting room to update the parents on Ashley's condition. Gently they were informed of the cardiac arrest, her pregnancy and subsequent miscarriage. They were livid. They blamed a boy, named Michael. Ashley had been dating Michael for several months, and her parents did not approve of the match. Learning that their daughter had been pregnant added fuel to the fire, and they now spoke bitterly and angrily about Michael. They asked how hepatitis B is transmitted. The answer at that time was through blood transfusions, contact with blood, sharing needles, and intimate contact. Their anger ramped up another notch. Over the following 24 hours, Ashley had a high fever and elevated pressure in her brain. Then she developed DIC, a catastrophic blood clotting disorder that sometimes occurs after multiple blood transfusions, pregnancy, and critical illness. Her condition was touch and go. I was called to the phone to speak with Michael's mother, who was calling to inquire about Ashley. Because she was not family, I was unable to give her any information regarding Ashley's condition, although she understood that Ashley was very ill. Then she asked me if the baby was okay. She knew about the pregnancy. I told her she would have to speak with Ashley's parents to learn about what was happening with her. Miraculously, Ashley's parents gave permission for Michael and his mother to be given information about her, as well as permission to visit her at night when the family returned to their hotel room. The fact that Ashley was so ill was a strong factor in their decision, I am sure. When Michael's mother visited, she volunteered that her son had hemophilia and had contracted hepatitis B from transfusions of blood products. Although he didn't have active hepatitis B, he was a carrier. He had most surely exposed Ashley to hepatitis B during intimate activity. Michael came that night, staying the entire night, sitting by her side, and crying all night. He told the nurse he never realized that he could infect Ashley, how sorry he was. He was so racked with guilt, he was broken. It was so incredibly sad. He went home in the morning just before Ashley's family arrived. In the morning, Ashley had stabilized enough to wean the sedative and paralytic medications. There was no movement of any sort, she didn't wake up, she was brain dead. She was perfectly still except for the breathing machine. She looked like Sleeping Beauty. Ashley's family was absolutely distraught. They cursed Michael and his family, they blamed him for everything. When I talked with Ashley's brothers, I noticed that there was a baseball bat among their belongings. I asked about it, and they said they planned to beat Michael whenever he showed up. I told them that would not be permitted and also, that Michael had hemophilia, and they would probably kill him with one blow. I called security and apprised them of the situation. They sent a police officer up to talk with Ashley's brothers. He told me there would be no trouble, then he left. I called Michael and his mother to tell them to stay away, that Ashley's family had rescinded their permission to visit. That the brothers were a serious threat to Michael. But I couldn't reach either one. Meanwhile, Ashley was failing. She was dying, and there was nothing more to be done to help her. Everyone was crying, even the nurses and doctors. It was so tragic. Eventually, her heart stopped, and the whole family cried bitterly in her room for nearly 30 minutes. No one could calm them, not even the chaplain. Drained, they went to the waiting room. They had left her door unlocked. Michael arrived and walked into the room, took one look at Ashley, and started wailing. Her brother ran into the room with a baseball bat. Although he swung several times, Michael was faster and ran into the nurse's station. Ashley's brother followed, but stopped his attack and stood there crying, too. This is the end of a very sad story. In a way, 2 kids died that day, as Michael knew he was responsible for Ashley's illness and death, no matter how much he didn't want to be. In addition, he could never again have a relationship with another girl because he would also infect her with hepatitis B just a couple of years later. A vaccination for Hep B would be developed.